Great. So, hello and welcome to our introduction to initiation, where we're talking about navigating the liminal space. Um, Thank you all for being here. If you're live or if you're watching the recording, you're here energetically. So, thank you very much. So, to start, we're just going to take a moment to just take in a few deep breaths and kind of center and arrive. So, if you just want to take a moment and close your eyes and just take in a few nice, deep, full body breaths. And just allow yourself to be present in this moment, in the seat you're in. You feel the clothes on your skin, feel the seat beneath you, feel the temperature of the room. Notice the breath moving in and out of your nose or your mouth. Just start to feel your muscles relaxing, your joints softening, your nervous system calming. Any kind of racing or anxious thoughts can just start to slow down and settle. Just taking a few more nice deep breaths, and whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and we'll begin. Yeah, so again, thank you so much for being here and welcome to our intro to initiation. So I'm going to talk you through kind of my journey a little bit with this and where my interest has developed with initiation. We'll talk through some different aspects and elements. Again, this is a massive topic. It's pretty vast. So we're going to do the best we can to fit that into the next hour or so. But obviously if there's questions during or anything that you would like some more explanation on, feel free to type away in the chat. Yeah, I'm happy to hear from you. And again, we'll have some questions at the end. Yeah, so where do we begin? Let's start with initiation. um, so I started to look basically in my meditation practice and in what I was teaching and what I was interested in sharing with people. I think it was 2015. I started to get this nudge around, and I just kept getting the words initiation. Go look at this, see what this is about, see how you can start to incorporate this in your work. Because before that, I didn't really have much of a concept of what that was. And so, a lot of times we hear about initiations into clubs or groups or societies or, different things like that. They talk about being initiated into that in terms of a ritual or ceremony. There are old initiation practices in certain tribes where you're initiated into adulthood. Even things like bar mitzvahs, which celebrate coming of age, birthdays, things like that, graduations. A lot of these play a part in kind of marking times of initiation within people's lives. Unfortunately, I think we've lost some of that, or we don't celebrate it or tap into that as much as we maybe have in the past, depending on culture and religion and things like that. And I think that actually is a part of what creates suffering and confusion and just either a lack of awareness or lack of recognition as well, because we have these milestones in life that aren't being recognized and aren't being celebrated. So some of the work that I'm interested in is kind of looking at how do we reintroduce that back into our lives? How do we find ways to celebrate each other, to witness when we are going through an initiatory process, when we are beginning an initiation? Again, so just to kind of plant a seed and get you thinking about something that might work for you or something that may feel relevant for you in your life. So initiations also mark beginnings, kind of doorways or beginnings of something new. And they're not kind of a quick and fast period of time. This tends to be things that span over often years. So we can go through different types of initiations in our lives. We can have very different experiences with different initiations and initiatory periods in our lives. And a lot of that depends on things like our belief systems, our backgrounds, and just our conditioning and culture as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. My whole, well, something that I feel really passionate about and excited about is how do we take these periods of time, which can often be difficult or trying or, yeah, not the easiest, but embrace them and make them something that is more graceful, something that we can understand consciously as well as subconsciously, and something that we can navigate our way through with more clarity. Because so many people are in these initiations or in initiatory periods, and they don't understand what's happening on these deeper levels, these energetic or kind of soul or higher self levels. And it creates all these difficulties, these resistance, and these problems. Yeah. So the hope is that, if you get one thing from this call, it will be some information on how to embrace this more, how to recognize what you are going through or maybe have been through in the past. And yeah, and again, what you can do to make that a more graceful, beautiful experience instead of something that feels painful or difficult. So in terms of, looking at initiation and what that means in a wider sense is, for me, it really starts with these elements of soul. And when I talk about soul, I mean like the eternal you. This is you that is beyond just this lifetime, just this human form. It's kind of the culmination of all your past and future lives, everything that you've already experienced in any incarnation, time, or dimension. And, we as souls have a clarity and understanding of who and what we are, what we want to learn, ways we want to grow, what we want to achieve, for lack of a better word. And some of that gets reflected in what we experience as human beings. So if you're looking at kind of the soul journey, and specifically in this lifetime as a human with that connection to you as a soul, it's really looking at this notion of what is it that I have come here to do or be or experience. So whether you want to call that your purpose, whether you want to call that your Dharma, or if you just see it as more of your experience and your journey in this lifetime, and how you evolve and learn and grow within that. That phrase that however you want. But this all links in with what we have chosen as souls to experience in this lifetime. So, and I've talked about this a few times before lately. I'm going to mention it again because it's always worth hearing again, and just having it sink in on a deeper level. Is that, a lot of times in a lot of modalities in the healing world, we'll talk about learning lessons, and we'll talk about, what are you here to learn? What are you here to understand? Understanding is different than learning, actually. Understanding for me is more of an embodiment that you actually apply the lessons and the learning. Again, Ram Dass, I think, put it beautifully, and I'm totally going to misquote it and get it wrong. But what he was saying, I think this is is it Walking Each Other Home? Is that the name of the book that he did? I think it's in that book. If anybody knows differently, please correct me in the chat. I'm happy to get the correct information. But what he was talking about was, instead of looking at these difficulties in life as lessons, to look at them as awakenings. And when I heard that, oh man, that just gives a whole other spin to it, and a depth and a more truth to it, I think. So he talks about how difficulty, well, not even difficulties, but anything that gets us out of our comfort zone, anything that brings something new into our lives, into our awareness that we can learn and grow from, is an opportunity for awakening. Many of the difficulties that come in our lives come from the fact that we resist our opportunities for awakening, or we are choosing to stay asleep. That part of us is resisting an opportunity to learn from it and grow. And again, that there can be lots of reasons for that, based on, again, what our belief systems are, what our fears are around that. If we are afraid that if we learn something new, that then changes our perspective, it then changes us on a deep level. It will change the way we see things. It will change the way we perceive the world around us. And when your perception changes, you change, your behavior changes, the way you relate to others changes. The way you react or respond to the world will change. And yeah, so, the first thing for me is really kind of looking at how open are we to these opportunities for awaken? How open are we to the fact that we have chosen to come here and learn and grow and evolve? But our human self, our ego, our subconscious, whatever you want to call it, may not be as open to receiving that as we would like for that to be. Oh, take a breath and let anything shift with that's coming up for you. So the cool thing about these opportunities for awakening and these kind of the lessons and the learning and the growth that goes with that is we are able to develop gifts, virtues, strengths, again, these kind of higher vibrational qualities or aspects. Again, whatever name you want to use for that. And what I find really fascinating is there's so much information out there talking about how we're all supposed to be high vibe. we're not supposed to get angry or upset, or basically we're not supposed to be human. So that's all a load of crap, by the way. But if people are wanting to be higher vibration, like in the truest, deepest sense, it is allowing these opportunities for awaken so that you can develop the gifts and skills that you're here to utilize and live. That is what actually makes you higher vibration. Because if you are living as a virtuous being, if you are actually living and applying, you're walking the talk, then you are going to be higher vibration. So, oh yeah, breathe that in too. So if we are looking to grow and evolve, let me share this. This is one of the best lessons or opportunities for awakening I've ever had. This came a number of years ago when I was having a difficult time trying to figure out why things were not going very well in my life and I couldn't make things work. And yeah, I was just struggling to figure it all out. And it was the message that we get what we ask for on some level. It doesn't always unfold the way we as humans want it to unfold. But if you can recognize times in your life, or maybe now, where you have stated either internally or set the intention or shared this with people around you, that you wanted to be better, do better, improve, evolve, transform, that doesn't just automatically happen. It will set the tone for it, and it will prime the energy to open those doors for that unfolding. What happens first, though, is that if you want to be here in terms of, compassion or sincerity or being jubilant and joyful, or being authentic and honest, or being dignified, having real honor and respect in your life, if that's here, whatever's getting in your way, whatever beliefs or patterns or habits or behaviors that are keeping you here, they all get highlighted, they all come to the surface so that you can address them, and then you make your way to here. So what happens is that we get really impatient as humans and saying, I want this, I want this, I want this, but then won't go through the initiatory journey of actually evolving into that. So we're looking for an elevator. And I'm sure there are elevators. If you're really ready and willing for that elevator. But what will happen for a lot of us, though, it's more of a step by step. Again, if you're ready and open for it, go. Most people take the step by step. But again, if you are resisting those opportunities for awakening, if you're burying your head in the sand and saying, no, I'm not going to address that issue, I'm not going to set that boundary, I'm not going to practice compassion, I'm going to think about being compassionate, but I'm actually going to be compassionate towards that person. I don't think they're worthy of it. I don't think they deserve it. I don't think it's, whatever your justifications are. If you don't actually do it, you don't get there. So when we say, I want this beginning, I want this new phase, this new paradigm, then you got to be ready to create it. I say you got to. You can resist it if you want to. I would encourage you to embrace it and to go with it. So, yeah. So, and there's this idea as well that, whatever is created in your life, either it's an old pattern that you need to address and do something differently this time, or maybe you're giving something new to help you highlight, oh, I haven't faced this issue in this way before. Or maybe this was a blind spot that I had here. So you'll get the opportunity to grow. Now, whatever hinders you will come up for you to address. So for those of you that are looking for the quick fix, snap of the fingers, oh, that would be interesting. I would encourage you to look at where you have been resisting your opportunities for awakening, where you've been resisting living your virtues or values, where you've been hiding away from showing up as that higher version of you. Because you'll keep getting chances until you do it right or do it in the best way, the most aligned way for you. Oh, there's some big energy working through here. Claire, wondering about clearing and healing from an issue or transforming it and how you do that without whitewashing the shadow or bypassing. Yes, bypassing will not work in initiation. It doesn't work anyway. It doesn't ever work. So any temptations to bypass are really, all right, Luffy's going to join us. Any attempts to bypass are the subconscious mind or the ego saying, this is the easier way, but it's not. Because if it's something that is triggering you, or it's a difficulty, or it's creating suffering, it is something for you to address and change. It's for you to find the courage and to be empowered to create that change instead of just waiting for someone or something else to do it for you. Breathe that in. So what's interesting is if you can kind of think about yourself in a different way. So as humans, we kind of are in this really interesting, Claire, I haven't forgotten you. I'm coming back to this. Don't worry. We're in this kind of linear time where we go from cause and effect to cause and effect to cause and effect, and there's an order to it and a progression. Now, a lot of times the consequence doesn't come right after. Sometimes the consequences can draw out or take some time to do that. So our relationship with time can make things really interesting with initiation, but it's also recognizing that in terms of these bigger themes or elements, our Dharma, our purpose, some of that is on soul time, and soul time is not human time. It's got its own time and rhyme and reason, and some of that's dependent on how and when and where you meet people in your life, the places that you're going to, the experiences that you're having. So some of those kind of pinpoints or focuses may not happen in the way and time that you think they should. So if you think of yourself as the soul, I see our energies as being like this kaleidoscope of energy that's spinning and moving and changing and evolving all the time. So moving, changing, evolving, trying to move along this set human time frame that we're in. And they don't always feel like they match up, and they don't always feel comfortable. especially when things either aren't moving as fast as we want them to, or we feel like they're moving way too fast for us to catch up with. So being able to reconcile the fact that we are these higher energy souls that are in this very different vibration within set limitations based on that vibration, so that we can have the experiences that we're able to have in this plane and in this lifetime. That doesn't always feel easy to reconcile within the human mind and the human brain. So one of the things I would encourage you with this, as we're continuing to talk through this, is allowing your mind to relax into some of these themes and ideas. Because the more your mind tries to constrict and hold on, the harder it is to actually understand. So anytime you feel like your mind is trying to constrict and hold on around this, take a breath and just allow your body, allow your energy to just open up. Oh, yeah, and take a deep breath and allow anything to shift there that's ready to shift. So when we are looking at things around kind of bypassing around the shadow, so this kind of ties into what creates the difficulties with this stuff. So our shadow side is simply what we fear. It is only the stuff that we don't understand yet. The things we understand, we no longer fear. It's the things that we are avoiding, that we're afraid to look at, that we're afraid to address. If we actually faced them and applied our virtues and our gifts and our skills and dealt with them and allowed that stuff to heal, we wouldn't be afraid of it anymore. And there would be less and less and less and less shadow, because we wouldn't be trying to run away from ourselves. We wouldn't be trying to suppress ourselves. So all the shame, all the judgment about yourself, all the things that you think are wrong with you, all the things that you think are bad or evil, we all have these belief systems. This is all the shadow stuff that you want to run away from and hide away from. It's a very human thing. Until you turn and face it, and this can be the initiation, this could be part of your healing initiation. Until you really face it and spend time with it and work with it, it'll stay there, and it'll stay in the shadows, and you will keep unconsciously making choices that trigger it, so you will face it. So any of these habitual patterns, behaviors, things you say, things you do over and over again that are creating suffering, it'll keep creating dramas and problems in your life until you've had enough. Until you say, I'm so tired of myself. I'm so tired of doing this. What am I going to do to change this? And the benefit of that is that, again, when you deal with it, you develop gifts and virtues, you develop knowledge and awareness. You are less afraid of yourself, you are less afraid of your life, and you're more willing to step into your Dharma and into your purpose and live your gifts. So we want to demonize the shadow. People spend all their times hating it and trying to run away from it. If you want to heal, if you want to grow, if you want to evolve in any way, do the shadow work. Dive right in. Get some help, get some support, but do it. That's the quickest. You want to speed things up, go into the biggest fears. Go deal with that stuff. Because again, it's the stuff that you just don't understand yet. There's a misunderstanding, there's a confusion there. You just haven't understood what's actually happening there. And I talked about this before, our deepest wounds lead to our greatest gifts. Your deepest shames may be teaching you how to see the best in other people, or how to be compassionate and kind and patient with other people when they're struggling. Your anger at other people might be trying to teach you how to set healthy boundaries, or how to express yourself and how to communicate. There's always reasons for that stuff there. So if you can go into it and find what those gifts are, what the awakening is within that, what are you trying to awaken within yourself, then that will transform you in a way better way. You don't have to do it through shadow work, but if there's stuff that keeps coming up, I would really encourage you to go into it. Yeah. Let's see, Adelina, While we feel stuck in our lives, spirit's been feeling stuck and stagnant, keep feeling there's something else out there I need to be doing. Maybe I need to release something. Probably both. Usually it's both. So actually, let's touch on this in terms of initiation. Um, so a lot of people want to start with new beginnings. They want to talk about what they want to manifest, what they want to create, what they want to move into. I'm going to challenge you with that and say that any new beginning starts with an ending. It always starts with an ending. It's an ending to how you see something, how you interact with things. It's an ending to how you react to the world. It's an ending to an identity or an idea of who you think you are that isn't totally true. It might be who you might have been. But I will say there is always an ending before something new begins. And so many people are dragging along all these old endings, searching for a new beginning, but there's no space for it. There's no space, there's no time, there's no energy because they are overburdened and weighed down. So what I would encourage you and anyone to do really is if you're kind of going, I'm stuck and I'm stagnant, I need something, or I want something new, start looking at what goes. What am I finished with? Again, it might be a label, it might be an identity, it might be a behavior. Start to look at the things that, and they may be smaller surface things, that little habits and things that just keep catching you out. You keep going, oh, it'll be okay. I'll just, it'll be fine. Dig deeper into that and find out what's really going on there. And that will help you to clear the energetic and emotional space in order to create something new. With feeling stuck and stagnant, the question is really, well, what's weighing you down? What's holding you in that cement, or what's keeping you, from being able to move forward? So, declutter your everything, shed whatever it is that's holding you back. And actually this ties in with kind of talking about the liminal stuff. So liminal space is that space in between. It's that space between I am here, I want to get there. This is the journey that gets me there. So nobody's comfortable in the liminal space. That's not our comfort zone. Our mind wants to know what's going to happen next. It wants to be able to predict every single thing. It wants to know what your identity is going to be, how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to behave. Our minds want to know all of that stuff. The liminal space doesn't have that. So this is where we have to move from that kind of knowing mind that can only rely on what it already knows, which is a tiny, tiny bit of information in the vast cosmos of possibilities. And this is where we move from that working mind into intuition. So navigating the liminal space really requires us to engage our intuition and to be able to, whether that's seeing, feeling, hearing, knowing, whichever of those senses you use or combination you use, really developing that and being able to listen to that and be guided by that as you move through. Because so many of the people I work with and I have the same thing, it's that pioneer energy. If you're a pioneer, if you're on the cutting edge, if you're a leader, there's probably not a lot of clear-cut paths for you to follow. And if there is stuff to follow, it's not all going to fit. It's not all going to match. So you are going to be in the liminal space at some point. You are going to kind of be in that forest, kind of trying to make your way through. So this is where you really have to get into whatever practices you do. If you have a daily meditation practice, I would really recommend that. If you have a practice with, connecting with nature, breath work, whatever it is that works for you, it's really kind of saying, I'm going to take this practice and I'm going to allow myself to be comfortable in the uncomfortable, or as comfortable as I can be. And I'm not going to try to run away from it, and I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to allow myself to take the step-by-step approach to working my way through. So it requires this ability to tap into your intuition and to be able to trust that. Now, we all have that ability. Sometimes we have to do some healing around that in order to trust ourselves, because we've either made mistakes in the past, we think we've made the wrong choices, whatever that was. Um, but it really is about you developing that and allowing yourself to just be in that energy and work your way through it. Um, yeah, it's the unknown, it's the unplanned. Again, this is soul territory. This is where you really sink into that deeper sense of who you are and that deeper understanding of knowing yourself on those levels. So then instead of getting distracted or pulled or pushed or allowing your ego subconscious mind to send you in ways that are not the right direction, it's turning back within and finding those answers there. Oh, breathe that in. Yeah. Can you do too much clearing? What's too much mean? I think people can get distracted, or what's a better word? Yeah. What I've seen people do is they want to spend all their time, like day after day after day after day, doing healing, 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 healing. There may be time and space for that. What also happens though is they start healing the same stuff over and over again because they haven't gone out and lived and recognized that they've already actually healed that and that they have the capacity to make those changes. So healing work really is about helping you make changes in your life. That's what it's about. So I think if the healing is becoming a distraction or a crutch or a reason for you to not go out and live your life, if you're saying, oh, I've got to heal that first before I go and do that, that's your ego talking. That's your subconscious mind making up stuff. Yeah. So I would say do the healing work, but also go out and make the changes, like have the courage to go have that conversation or to address that dynamic or to change that habit. Just go and start doing those things too. The healing will help with it, but go start making the changes. Yeah. Yes. Oh. So in terms of kind of our difficulties with kind of navigating these changes and working our way through this, some of this will be old belief systems. Some of this could come from, it could be stemming from ancestral experiences or past life experiences. Again, what I will say about that is whatever you've accepted in this incarnation, whatever stuff you've got that they shared, you've accepted for some reason. So you're still trying to learn or grow from it. You can't blame your ancestors. I mean, you can if you want, but it's not true. So if you have wherever these beliefs came from, it could be from this lifetime, from culture, community around you, or again, family, ancestral past life. You can have beliefs that change or the journey or that life itself is difficult. You can believe that life is suffering. The number of people that say that in sessions is pretty high. People believe that it's all just too hard. People also have belief systems that they have to prove themselves, that they have to prove that they are worthy and deserving of the knowledge or of the virtues or the gifts that they receive. Sometimes people believe that they have to go through the illnesses, the pain, the suffering that their ancestors went through in order to access the gifts or the wisdom or the virtues that are there. Yeah, some people believe that they have to go through, it's kind of that martyrdom stuff of I have to martyr myself, I have to suffer, I have to sacrifice, I have to, whatever it is in order to receive that any divine information or, connection with God, creator, source. People also have issues around their own worthiness. They think they are unworthy of being initiated into something higher, into something better, into something more aligned. Um, if part of your Dharma is to be a leader and you think that you're not worthy of it, um, or that you have to prove yourself in order to do it, you'll spend your life shunning the opportunities to develop those gifts and skills. You'll spend your life running away from opportunities to do that, or you will overcorrect and spend so much time trying to prove yourself to who knows what until you overwhelm and exhaust yourself. Either option's exhausting, really, because you're either exhausting yourself by running away or exhausting yourself by trying to prove. So, yeah. So again, it's really worth looking at, if you know it's part of your Dharma to be a leader, if you know it's part of your Dharma to be a healer, to be a teacher, to build communities and connect people, to be a parent, to be a creative, a musician, to bring beautiful music into the world, to share that through dance or movement or writing, whatever that is for you. If you can recognize the ways you fight it and the ways you resist it and the ways you run away from it and learn to embrace it more, your life will become so much simpler. You will have so much more energy. It will be so much easier for you. I know years ago, I kept getting readings around writing a book, and I'd already done lots of writing. I enjoy writing. It's something that I found not easy, but enjoyable and something I have some talent with. I think that writing is part of my Dharma. It's one of the ways that I channel information. So when I kind of realized that writing was a part of that, I said, well, I guess I better learn how to write and learn how to write a book and learn how to publish and figure all that stuff out and just go do it. So it didn't mean it was all easy. I was still having to learn and figure all that stuff out. But I made the choice to embrace it and say, okay, how do I make this enjoyable? How do I make this fun? How do I make this something that's great for me too? If it's something I'm here to do and I'm here to be a part of that, then how do I do that? Whereas people will resist and fight all of this. And this is what makes the initiation so hard. It's what makes the development of your gifts and skills so difficult. So, we've already talked about bypassing and how that makes things so much more difficult, how it makes things so hard. If you're bypassing the awakenings, if you're bypassing the opportunities to learn, you won't. You'll just keep yourself stuck and stagnant. You'll keep yourself locked into, well, you'll try to. At some point, something will motivate you, but hopefully in a better way. And our resistance to facing our fears, that's one of the biggest hindrances I've ever found. And again, this is a very human thing. Everybody does it to a degree. We all have conscious and unconscious ways that we either bypass or try to numb out or downplay things in our own minds or wherever that is. And the more we do that, the more difficult we make our lives. So it's really worth kind of looking at what you're here to do or be. Those couple things, kind of the themes or the threads of your life. And asking these questions around, how can I prepare myself for that? What can I learn? What experiences can I have? What people can I meet? What support can I get? So as I'm moving through this, it's something that's graceful and more enjoyable and fun. Your Dharma is not here to suffer. You're not here to suffer. That's not your Dharma. That's not your purpose. Nobody's here to suffer. That's not why we're here. But if you fight it, you will create suffering and you will make it harder for yourself. So if we all just turned up and did and behaved as what we were here to do and be, we would all be so much happier. Life would be so much easier and so much more graceful. But we fight it because we fear it. We're afraid of it on some level. Yeah. So let me know if there's any questions around any of that so far, if anything's coming up. Yeah. um, yeah, so something I'll share in terms of the I won't go deep into the astrology right now, but this is what was coming up earlier to share. You know, Pluto is the planet that represents a lot of stuff around initiation. It's transformations, it's endings and beginnings. It's that cycle, circle movement. Yeah, that we kind of go through with in different journeys and different phases of our lives. So Pluto, the way I see Pluto is Pluto's like the plow, and it's slow moving. It's the farthest planet out. It takes a long time for it to move through any house or to get anywhere. So it's not something that's going to run you over with no warning. But it's like the plow. And what it does is it plows under what no longer aligns, what no longer has integrity, what no longer works for you. So you can either get plowed under by it or you can go along with it and make the changes as you go. When you recognize that you're coming up against an edge, or you recognize that there's something there that, yeah, it's either stuck, stagnant, it doesn't have life to it anymore, that's the time to address that. So Pluto has been making its way through Capricorn since 2008. And next year it's moving back on into Aquarius. It's going to have one more little stop retrograde into Capricorn late next year, but not too far in. So anybody who's got major Capricorn placements or since 2008, you've been going through some of this. That Pluto energy, you've got to evolve and change with that. Anybody who's got major Aquarius placements, I would highly encourage you to get a sense of how you can work with it instead of running away from it, how you can embrace it. This is embrace it and surrender to it. That's the advice I've got. Because we don't come here to stay the same. We come here to evolve and to grow. So the more you can embrace that, the more you can actively participate in it instead of being passive about it and just waiting for it to happen, because it's not how that happens. We've got to be active participants in our own lives. Yeah, that's a great one to look at. And if any of you understand or know your Chiron placements, I find that's another big one for kind of initiation and change and kind of healing, doing the healing work to evoke change and finding, those deepest wounds and how they translate into your greatest gifts. So Chiron's in Aries and will be for a long time. I'm sorry, I don't know the exact dates. Forgive me. So any Aries placements will be affected by Chiron right now. So that might be worth kind of looking at if any of you are into astrology. Yeah, those are some good placements to look at in terms of initiation and kind of the longer term things. There, what about just sitting with something, face it as and not trying to change it? Does that count? Yeah, I think I found a lot of the language around that to be a little confusing, at least for me. So there's acceptance. There's definitely the virtue and practice of acceptance, whereas I can accept that there are things in the world that I cannot change. I haven't been able to snap my fingers and end poverty. That has not changed. So I've had to develop some acceptance for that. What I can do is say, if that's something that speaks to me, how can I contribute towards changing that? If it creates suffering for me, what do I need to heal within myself so that I can have some acceptance and create some positive impact if I choose to do that? If you are trying to force change or force healing, if you're trying to control it, that doesn't work either. Control is not a real thing. People talk about it all the time. It's not even real. We allow things, we create things, we manifest things. Nobody has any control over each other or anything like that. You can make choices for yourself. You can be responsible for yourself. You don't have a lot of control. So sitting with something, I would say if there's an emotion or something to sit with, then sit with it to receive the guidance and the positive information it can give you. And see what's there within that you can learn from it. I think that is totally worthwhile and worth doing. But yeah, I think anything you sit with that's heavy and hard and harsh, if you sit with it and understand it, it's just going to change, because those negative emotions are there to give you a message. They're there to help you learn. That's part of that awakening. They're there to awaken you. You're choosing something that's out of alignment. Here's something you can do differently. Be aware this feels bad because you need to choose something different. So that's part of the awakening. So you can sit with it and get those messages and get those answers. And then they'll change on their own, because they no longer need to give you that message if you follow through with it. If you don't, they might stick around. So if you make a choice to change, even if it's changing your perspective on something, if you gain more clarity and understanding, you go, I get that now. That's a change. So anything you sit with and understand more deeply is going to create a change anyway. Yeah. Mira, what's the best way to sit with ancestral trauma? It's hard to figure out where it came from and how to heal it, accept it. Yeah. So with ancestral trauma, if you are suffering from that, you have chosen that in order to awaken, learn, grow, evolve. So you may not need to get into the whole story of your ancestors and what they went through. It might be worth just sitting with yourself and asking the answers. Why have I accepted this? Why am I suffering with this? And it may be that you want to understand your ancestors more deeply. You want to understand what they went through. It may be that they develop gifts and skills and virtues within that were positive, that you want to access and get into. Yeah, you can, I mean, it's different for everybody, but those tend to be some similar. Sometimes it's also just to fit in. It's kind of that thing of, well, if I have the same belief systems and the same trauma, the same emotions, I fit in with this group, I'll get accepted because there's a resonance there. Yeah, so it could be a few different things, but I would meditate with that and say, what am I trying to learn from this? What am I trying to gain from this? And resolve that within yourself. You can send love to your ancestors and they can receive whatever insight or guidance they're needing at that time. But yeah, it's kind of recognizing that that's their journey as well, and they can heal if they choose to, and we don't have to carry. We don't really carry that pain. We don't carry other people's trauma. We just carry our own. Other people's trauma will trigger ours, but we don't carry other people's trauma and pain. It's our own stuff that's going on there. I feel like we could go off on 10 different tangents with that. I'm trying to keep it focused. These are all great questions. Really, really good questions. Yeah. So what becomes really interesting as well, and I think I touched on it before, but it becomes interesting to start to look back at your life and recognize specific people or places or events that kind of have activated you in some way, that have either awoken you to, well, my life could be a little different than this, or, oh, maybe this is a path I could explore, or, again, this idea of there's more than what my mind already knew that was possible. And And I think sometimes looking back at those things can be real key. So for those of you who are still trying to figure out your Dharma or purpose, recognizing those key moments or events or places or times can help you start to piece this together. And again, when I say activated, that can be a really positive, joyful, uplifting thing. Sometimes we're activated in really hard ways. Again, depending on what you believe the process or life has to be. Oh, breathe that in. Breathe through that. Yeah. So again, and those activations may indicate a new beginning, or it may be, again, could start with an ending of a paradigm or way of living that you've been in for a while, but it was time to start evolving out of. I mean, what will happen is, for people that stay in their little world, in their comfort zone, that don't stretch, that try to hide away from the world, their initiations take much longer, and they're often not as easy because they're avoiding and they're delaying. Whereas if you allow yourself to engage in life, to take risks, to try new things, to go to new places, to have new conversations, whatever that is, you get activated in ways that progress that growth and progress that capacity to learn and evolve. So all of you who are just trying to wait it out, I've got bad news. You're just prolonging the inevitable. Yeah. So, and whatever ways activate you in really positive ways, go do that. Like again, it's I think if you know something's part of your Dharma, find ways to learn and grow and experience it. If you are activated, like I know live music is one of my big things. Live music by an awesome band and a great group of people. That is activating for me. I have insight, clarity, information, manifesting, all that stuff is easier in that space for me. I get activated when I meditate, especially when I meditate on specific things or with specific music or in specific ways. Those are great activation points for me. There are specific people that I know when I have a conversation with them, I'm going to have the best idea ever. Like it's just going to come through. So find those people, find those places, find those activities, do that stuff. Again, make it more joyful, make it easier for you. Otherwise, you start getting activated in things that are really super triggering because you've spent so much time hiding away. Some big energy here. Yeah. So I'm going to take us through just a little meditation, just to kind of help bring in some ideas or clarity, and to just maybe get a sense of what could work for you now, just to receive that information on whether it's being activated or that next step or supporting you through that liminal space. We'll set the intention that that information comes through for you now. So we'll just do a couple minutes. And yeah, that will take us through mostly to the end. Right. So if you want to take a moment and just close your eyes and relax into your seat or chair. And just take a moment to feel into any feelings of tension or resistance, to any part of you that's wanting to run away or hide away, that's wanting to avoid. And just notice where you're feeling that in your body to start with. Just take a few nice deep breaths in and out of those areas. The intention is just to connect with it, to notice it, to bring in a little spaciousness to those parts of your body and your energy field. And even if it feels uncomfortable, allow yourself to just receive some messages from that discomfort within you. And this is positive guidance for what you can do, ways you can grow, or just a new understanding. So even though it feels uncomfortable, let that energy share any positive advice it has. Keep breathing deep into those areas. Just feeling that energy lightening up, loosening off. And recognizing it's not actually as scary as you thought it was. It's not as big as you thought it was. It's just a few things you don't understand yet. Take a moment to notice one of the feelings or emotions within you that feels the heaviest, that feels the darkest, one that you're most afraid of, whether it's anger or sadness, rage, frustration, grief, whatever that is for you. And any part of you that's trying to run away from it or suppress it right now, just breathe into that and allow that habit to change. And notice that even though you thought that feeling or emotion was really big or really scary, when you shine a light on it and really look at it, it's not as dense, it's not as heavy, it's not as scary as you thought. Take a moment to recognize the behaviors or the thoughts and beliefs that have been feeding that feeling in you. What do you keep doing that keeps feeding that feeling? And then allow yourself to recognize what you could change. What habit, what thought, what pattern, what outlook. Just feel those feelings starting to resolve. Allowing your fears to lessen. Then take a moment to connect with that energy of you as a soul. So go within, not to your ego, your identity, but that connection within you that really knows and understands who and what you are on a bigger scale. That understands your Dharma and your purpose and why you're here in this lifetime. You can think of that as soul or your higher self. If there's any confusion around your purposes or why you're here, just allow your mind to relax, any assumptions to resolve, any confusion to clear. Just let the noise go. Start to allow yourself to receive some higher truth. Not what your ego wants to do to make you feel really important or to prove others wrong or to prove your worthiness. But ways you're here to be of service to the world. And if there's any fear in seeing that or understanding it, just breathe into that and let that fear start to resolve. Because you've chosen to come here to be and do these things. So of course you're able. So let the assumptions go. Let the excuses go. Let the judgments about yourself go. Allow yourself to get a sense of what you could be doing now to support living your purpose. What could you be learning? What experiences could you have? Who could you learn from or collaborate with? How could you tap into your creativity? What would actually support that evolution? If there's any other questions you want to ask yourself, ask those higher aspects of yourself. If you're just willing to receive more guidance and information, take these last few moments for that. Take a few nice deep breaths. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. Feel free to take your time. Just share a couple things with you before we go into any last questions. So the initiation work is a big part of what I do. It's actually kind of underpins lots of the work I do in loads of different facets and ways. So I have personal bespoke initiation ceremonies for individuals and small groups. If anybody wants to learn more about that or see what that would entail, I'll send information out about that. I also have past initiation ceremonies, group ceremonies that are recorded that you can buy the recording and listen to, and have the healing and the meditation and the insight. They are super fun. They were fun to do. I do one-to-one sessions, and I also do astrology readings, natal chart readings. So if anyone is any of these themes that we've talked about are coming up, and looking at your natal chart and the current transits would be useful. Those are all things that would kind of tie into things we've discussed this evening. Yes, but thank you all so much for being here. Yeah, I've really enjoyed being able to connect, and there's been some really amazing questions. So thank you all so much for that.